most people are flowing through life like just slightly off the ground. We don't actually know what's happening. We're just going through the motion. So you'll hear people call like automatic pilot, or you're on the hamster wheel, you're doing the same thing over and over. So what I've come to find is that mindfulness is just, simply put, I say just awareness. It is bringing awareness to your moment experience. We will often use the metaphor of like sitting on a riverbank. Instead of being in the river and taken downstream, you're just sitting on the riverbank, watching all the thoughts go by and actually choosing which one you want to attend to.
Hi, I'm Blake Schofield, founder and CEO of The Bridge to Fulfillment, mom to 3, USA Today top 10 professional coach, and former corporate executive who got tired of sacrificing my life for a comfortable paycheck. My mission is to expand women's perspectives and empower them to achieve greater impact at home and work without sacrifice. This is The Bridge to Fulfillment. I couldn't be more excited to welcome my special guest today on The Bridge to Fulfillment. I'm introducing you to one of my closest friends, somebody who has such a rich depth of experience and knowledge, a huge heart, and an ability to really make a significant difference to those around her. My guest today is Renee Metty. Renee specializes in bridging the gap from where you are to where you want to go without chaos. She built on over 25 years of experience from the entrepreneurial, education, and corporate backgrounds. She has a formal training in mindfulness, body language, and emotional intelligence. She founded the Cove School, which is the first mindfulness-based preschool in the entire United States, as well as her coaching and training business with Pause that allows her to support work with leaders, educators, and parents. In a few minutes, I'll introduce you to Renee, and on this episode, I asked her to share a little bit about what mindfulness is, because it's certainly something I think I didn't know very much about. I see a lot of people have misperceptions about what it is, but also I wanted her to be able to share a few tools with you, things that you can take away today to feel more grounded and more present, to be able to enjoy the present moment that you're in. And I can think of no better time to do that than right smack in the middle of the holiday season, when many of us can often feel pulled in 100 directions. I also wanted Renee here to share with you about an incredible venture that she and I started earlier this year when we launched a brand new community called Ascend. It's a community for purpose-driven, high-achieving men and women who want to create more alignment in their lives, reduce stress and friction, and achieve their goals with more ease, consistency, and peace of mind. We truly are creating a place to come home to. And we'll share a little bit with you about that in the episode today. And if it's something that you feel driven to join, or you know somebody who you think could benefit from it, we'd love to see you there. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to my great friend, Renee, and allow her to share with you a little bit about what mindfulness is and how you can put into place some really simple things, like I said, to be more present and enjoy your life more on a day-to-day basis. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Bridge to Fulfillment. I could not be more excited to be sharing one of my closest friends with you today, Miss Renee Metty. And she's going to be able to share a little bit with you about her personal journey from type A perfectionist to one of the people that I know that leads a life of ease and flow. And a lot of things come to her without having to do a lot of work. And it's really a result of all of the work that she's put in to really create the life that she wants. And she'll be able to share a little bit with us today about her mindfulness journey, and maybe break some myths for you about what that is and help you begin to see how you may be able to create a life with more ease, more consistency, and more joy. So with that said, welcome, Miss Renee.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited we could do this together. We talk For those of you guys who don't know, which is probably most of you, Renee and I talk at least once a week in person, but then we're constantly chatting with one another. And so this has sort of probably been long coming, but as always, it happens on perfect timing. So with that said, Renee, would you mind just introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about you and your journey?
Yeah, my journey is long and varied, which in the beginning, I would have said maybe felt a little like I didn't really know what I want and everyone else had things figured out, but have come to realize that it's the way I operate. I like variety. I like a lot of different things. So I started out with 5 years in corporate, and I was volunteering quite a bit with kids in, a child psychiatric unit, a locked unit, and then at a hospital with a lot of physical disabilities, and ended up, 15 hours a week volunteering on top of my corporate tech job, which was during the 90s tech boom, which was a lot of fun, but a lot of hours. And so my thought back then was, well, I'm doing this 15, 20 hours a week. Why don't I get paid for it? So transitioned to teaching, thinking that was, that's where the kiddos are, and quickly realized that I was 7 years in teaching at everything from preschool to middle school kiddos with emotional behavioral disorders, which was my absolute favorite. But I absolutely hated teaching because I really recognized that I did not care what kids learned. I cared how they learned, and I cared a whole lot about their social emotional well-being. And 20 years ago, that wasn't super supported. So I ended up leaving teaching, knowing that I always wanted to run my own business, never knew what I wanted to do. And so knowing I wanted a family down the road, I launched a wedding and event planning business. I had that for about 10 years. And as my family was growing, after the birth of my second kiddo, I launched an in-home daycare so that I could create the program I wanted. I could vet the teachers so that I had time to work on the other business. Well, the daycare did really well. And I was also not a daycare person. And so what I realized was I was not a traditionally thinking person. And so I ended up transitioning that to the first mindfulness-based preschool in the country, which still exists today. And from that, because mindfulness was so new in education, particularly in the early childhood years, when I started, parents were really curious. And so I started doing more parenting workshops, which led them to ask me to go into their workplace, which I did. And so now I have the preschool, and it's kind of come full circle because I spend a lot of my time working with leaders and executives in tech, coaching, consulting, small group coaching, and then met Blake. And now we do events together for high achieving, purpose-driven people. And what I realized is that I create space for people to gather and love that's inviting, restoring, and healing. And so whenever people ask me what I do, I think most of us tend to say our role or what's like the job we're doing. But the bigger picture is I am able to create space for people to allow them to unfold their journey. And that's my journey through mindfulness is really an ever evolving unfolding, because if Blake had this conversation with me a year ago, would be quite different. If she has me on again in 6 months, probably different as I get more information, as I open up my heart, as I bring more awareness, things just start evolving and unfolding.
Awesome. So I personally met Renee via a Zoom coaching call, actually back right before COVID, like in 2019, I think, before COVID. And one of the things I really appreciated is her heart for kids and for giving kids the tools to be successful and giving parents the tools to be successful in raising their kids. And that was just kind of it. I was like, oh, what a lovely woman. And I love what she's doing and her passion for it. And then fast forward to January of 22, we had a small event together in California, meet in person. I'm a little under the weather, but we had a lovely conversation. It was nice. And then we kind of went about our way. And then we ended up back again at an event together in April. And that for me was sort of where everything shifted and changed. We just instantly connected. I think we probably spent 12 hours talking one-on-one at that event. And in that moment, I kind of knew like there's deep significance in this relationship. And I think often we don't realize the very people that are in our lives that might be the people that completely change them. And I think it's a really interesting and beautiful thing to think that we had all of this time and we had talked here and there, but it really wasn't until we had some significant time together that we began to realize how much we shared values and experiences. And while our lives had been very different, right? Mine was very planned, very structured. Even though I did have multiple careers in the same way that you did, it was far more linear, far more structured, and obviously very heavily corporate. But hilarious, we both started out in retail and have many of the same stories. And I think what has evolved since April, we're sitting in November right now, what has evolved in these last number of months has been beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And I think one of the things I've really come to learn and appreciate this year is that most of us think life is black and white and very linear. I do this and this outcome comes. But we don't realize that exponential growth can't be planned for. It's not ever what you expect it to be. And if you try to engineer it, it's like sand slipping through your fingers. And so what I love about having you here today is how many amazing things have transpired for both of us in these last number of months that we could have never in a million years planned. And yet it's so much better than we could have ever imagined. And I think that's a lot of the work that we do together is to help people gain alignment, right? Truly gain alignment with your purpose and your calling and the work you're meant to be doing, and reduce that stress and that friction in your life, which then in turn enables you to achieve your goals more consistently and with more ease and more peace of mind in your life. And Renee, you've taught me so many amazing things. I didn't know anything about mindfulness, really. I mean, I think most people don't that aren't in the mindfulness field, and you've studied so in depth in this for a very long time. I think my perspective of mindfulness was like yoga, or people that sit and meditate in silence. And I really didn't know anything beyond that. I had been exposed a little bit to some breath work, but I didn't really understand what mindfulness was or how it might be able to help me. It felt very sort of elusive. And I know when we did our first event together in late September, early October, you actually talked a little bit about that. What are people's perceptions of mindfulness and what is it really? Would you mind sharing a little bit? Because I think that the world needs a whole lot more of it. And I have seen it make such a huge impact for me and for our clients. And I'd love to be able to share that with, my broader audience so that they can have some of the tools and understanding about how to create more peace and more space in their life.
Yeah. I mean, I'll preface it by saying I had the same misconceptions. Yoga, I really just thought it was all hippy dippy stuff and that I didn't need it. So mindfulness came into my world as curriculum for kiddos. And then as I started learning more, I mean, a lot of the misperceptions are that if you're struggling in your life and it's calming, the people that practice mindfulness never get upset. They don't feel the ups and downs of things in life that we all experience as a human. There are a variety of forms of practicing mindfulness, both formal and informal. Some people think it's, we get rid of all of our thoughts. And so what I've come to find that mindfulness is, simply put, I say just awareness. It is bringing awareness to your moment experience. And it's just paying attention in a very different way. And so when you look at and experience your life, most of us, sometimes I'll feel like, you ever walk into a room and it's like, you can tell it feels like heavy, or you walk into a conversation and it's just kind of lighthearted. Well, there's this feeling I get, and I've told Blake this many times, I wish people could draw what I see in my head, but it's almost like most people are flowing through life just slightly off the ground. We don't actually know what's happening. We're just going through the motion. So you'll hear people call automatic pilot, or you're on the hamster wheel, you're doing the same thing over and over, or you're driving on the road, to use some of Blake's analogy with a car, and you just get from point A to point B, but you don't actually know how you got there, especially if it's just like a commute you're doing day to day. And so what I found is, once I started paying attention, there are many, many layers of this. So if you are, for myself as a type A, really had a hard time, I realized, prioritizing, because to me, everything was a priority. And I had this story around, especially as an entrepreneur, and it does all fall on me. I wore all the hats. It was just, I was a solopreneur for a while. But what I recognized is that once I could start prioritizing, which I could only do when I created space in my life instead of moving and taking action and going from the next thing. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I prided myself on multitasking, but the brain actually cannot focus on only one thing at a time. So you're just context switching, which takes a huge cognitive burden and drain. And so one of the first steps, I would say, if you are new to mindfulness, is that you just need more space, meaning you have to take things off your calendar. It cannot be this color-coded, like stacked Tetris puzzle of appointments. And my parents are in town, and it's so funny because my mom is like, go, 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 go. And she like comes up the stairs this morning, and I'm just like sitting in the chair, and she's like, I have to go make the coffee, and I have to go do this. And I'm like, Mom, sit. So she's laughing because I do this to her a lot. And so I had her sit, and I was like, okay. And we have this amazing view. I'm like, look out the window. And she's laughing, and she looks out, and I kid you not, I don't even think she lasted 15 seconds. She's like, okay, I got to go. And so it's that kind of energy and that kind of recognizing in your life, like, where does that seep in? We're all going to have it at some point. So just starting to notice, where are you in your life? What are you spending your time and energy doing? And do you have any space at all to just sit down and sip your tea or your coffee or have a meal without thinking about the next thing that you're going to do? And so what practicing mindfulness, being intentional about bringing space into my life has done, you're going to have thoughts. But what you're doing is you're recognizing that the thoughts have taken you away. So we will often use the metaphor of like sitting on a riverbank. Instead of being in the river and taken downstream by, think of leaves falling or little pieces of debris in there as every thought. And then we get attached to a particular thought and we ruminate on it. We think on it and like, what if this and what if that? And we think about the past and we think about the future versus just sitting on the riverbank, watching all the thoughts go by and actually choosing which one you want to attend to. And so one of the things that you may start noticing is that I like to bring the science into it in our nervous system. Our nervous system is jacked up when we have all that cortisol running through it and we're stressed. As you start recognizing, creating space, your nervous system will just settle. And all of a sudden time becomes almost non-existent. When we're stressed and we're trying to meet a deadline or trying to get something into someone, doesn't the time just feel like it's clicking away so fast? When you create that space, it's almost like you have all the time in the world. And so there are so many different layers to this. And the first one, if you only have the perceptions of mindfulness, if you haven't experienced it or haven't even really looked into it, is just start noticing where you're at. Just start noticing where all of the time and energy that you're spending. And like, do you have a moment to yourself where you can just actually recognize what thoughts are in your mind, or are they just racing? And then there's some tangible things that you can do. Breathing helps activate the parasympathetic side of the nervous system, which is what they call your rest and digest. And so if you think of like waves, like going up and down, you have your sympathetic that's going up, and that stress is neutral. So stress is rising and there's just enough stress to give you that challenge that's motivating. And then if you watch the wave, it takes about 90 seconds for that energy wave to go down to the parasympathetic side. And so that's why you'll always hear when people are stressed, like just breathe, because the breathing is actually activating your rest and digest side. And so there are lots of different breathing exercises, but one of the ones I like is called box breathing. And so you can trace the four sides of a box. And so you inhale on 4, and then you hold for 4, and then exhale for 4, hold for 4, and then you just repeat that a few times. And that's a way that you can get started.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Renee. I appreciate that. For those of you guys who are listening, I'll give you a little bit of background and then I'll share with you my experience in doing this work with Renee and how it's impacted me, how it's impacted our clients. So as I said, in April, Renee and I were like, oh my goodness, what's happening here? And for about 2 years, I was trying to figure out what was next after the Bridge to Fulfillment. How could I create a greater sense of community and a place where people really continued that personal growth together through this journey of really looking at what was needed and what I wanted to do and how to bring that together? Renee sort of became a key piece of that for me. And so I said, hey, you want to launch this new community with me where we expand beyond just helping corporate women who are unfulfilled in their career? That's a specific challenge and a specific place in your life. But our community that we've launched is really focused on purpose-driven, high-achieving men and women. And it's really a community where you can truly feel seen, heard, and understood. Our, what's the right word, phrase? Tagline.
Yeah.
Yes, is a place to come home to. And so in late August, we launched the Ascend community,
what we do is twice a month, we come on and we have calls and we talk as a community and we share, we learn together. And then we are also doing events where we have the opportunity for people to really experience this and experience transformation and growth together. And so we launched the community at the end of August. We had our very first event at the end of September, and incredible experience in Phoenix, Arizona, and just this beautiful home, such a perfect space for time together. And during that event, Renee shared a lot about mindfulness and was such a beautiful counterpoint to the work that I do and how I would describe that experience and what it taught me. And I've done some breathing exercises. I've tried to do some meditation or some reflective work. But what we did together was very different in that the way that I describe what Renee really does is it's sort of like if you think about the old radio stations, right, with the knob, like the AM, FM stuff, that most of us are just operating not on a channel. It's like static. There's a lot of static in our lives. And I think, we talk about the hamster wheel, we could talk about just going through the motions, but I think that's how most of us are living our lives. And so what Renee really does is teach you to sort of turn the dial and connect and tune into the right radio station. And in doing that work and learning how to become more present in our day-to-day lives, what I really saw that happen for me is it sort of gave me an understanding of what it felt like to be centered and to be grounded and to be attuned and aligned with the right radio station. And so then when I got back to everyday life, I found myself just changing things that I had done before. I used to listen to the music all the time in the radio in my car, and now I really prefer to drive in silence. I like to be aware of what I'm hearing and seeing and feeling and smelling. I like to truly be able to be much more present. And as a result of that, what Renee said is really what I have found to be true, which is like time slows down. Mm-hmm. You have time to respond and see what's coming and what's happening. It's allowed me opportunities that I would have missed, connection, greater connection with my family, my friends, the people I really care about, and to be present in a way that I wasn't able to be present before. And this is a process. It's not something that happens overnight, especially if your entire life has been run on a hamster wheel. And anytime you do have a free second, like Renee's mom, you're like, okay, I saw it and done it, and I have all this stuff to do, right? We have to learn to develop and peel back the layers. Like I often say, we have to clean the windshield on the car. It's like you've been driving for 20 years and you never got a car wash. We have to clean the windshield on the car so you can see clearly. Each one of these things, though, layers upon themselves to be able to create a life where you're more present. You have more gratitude and more joy. Things come to you with more ease. You don't have to work as hard. It's such a powerful thing. And one of the things I really loved about the event is one of the women that was there, she said, I'm so grateful to be here because I feel it. I feel it. And so I know it's true. And I think for most of us, we're not in environments or surrounded by people who are challenging us and showing us a better way, really helping us find our way to create more extraordinary things in our lives and to actually reach our potential. And so, Renee, thank you so much for joining me today to share just a little bit about your journey and what you do. And thank you for being my partner in this amazing journey that we've started. It brings me to tears because it's such a joy to be able to do this work with you every day. And for those of you who are listening who really feel like you want to learn more about how to do this in your world, right? You truly want to feel like that every day you're passionate and excited to do what you're here to do. And you want to be able to create a life that's easier, right? Where you consistently achieve your goals, where you are present for the moments that matter, and where you really have peace of mind that you're creating the life that you want with intention. I encourage you, please feel free to join us. We'll put the link in the show notes so that you can join us in the Ascend community. You can also find information in the link to join by just going to blakescofield.com. But I encourage you, if this is really speaking to you, we'd love to have you be a part of the community. Feel free to invite any friends, husbands, brothers, et cetera, that you think would really benefit from this, because the work that we're doing is really transformational. And I think from my heart, one of the biggest things that I learned this year is I really stepped back and said, if money were no object and I never had to make money again for the rest of my life, what would I do? How would I show up in service to people? And what I really said was I would help people understand that much of what they're suffering from, they are the cause of, and that they can change that. And I would help give them a map to be able to understand how to create a life of purpose and intention and ease and joy. And through that, that's really where Ascend was formed from, was that desire just to serve and help people and to be able to help them understand the lessons I've learned in these years that have completely transformed my life in so many amazing ways. And I've watched it transform hundreds of people that I've had the opportunity to work with. And I watched that become even more exponential in the work that Renee and I do together. And so thank you, Renee, for just being you. Thank you for showing up today to share a little bit of your genius. And thank you guys for being a part of this. We are right in the crux of probably one of the most stressful times of the year with the holidays. And I think often we want to be present, but we struggle to do so. We create so many lists of things that we should or have to do. We overfill and overstuff our calendars. And then we go through cycles where then we get sick, we get filled with guilt and frustration, and cycles where we just don't even have time to think. So I want to encourage you today that this year you can do it differently, that you can actually look at your list and determine what is really necessary versus what you're telling yourself you have to do. That you can make an intention to be more present in your life with your family and the things that really matter to you. And I think often we get to the holiday season and we think I have to put all this stuff aside and just do. But I would encourage you that maybe it's the time to do the exact opposite. Maybe it's the time to put down and stop doing all the stuff that you don't need to do. And it's the time to actually sit and think about how you can be more intentional and more present in your life. And you can begin it now. You don't have to wait till January. You can take the end of your year, right, as the beginning of an amazing year ahead. So thanks again for joining us. Again, if you're interested in joining us in the Ascend community, you can either find it in the show notes, or you can go to blakeschofield.com, scroll down and hit join the community. And again, thank you so much for joining. Renee, is there anything last parting things that I have not asked you that's on your heart that you would like to share?
The only thing I was going to ask/add is if we could just give them an experience, because what you said several times is the thing of like, you feel it. And this is, you can get off this, stop listening to the podcast and look up mindfulness and Google it and read books, but you really have to feel it. And so I just wanted to leave them with a really brief experience of something that can take into the end of this year and maybe even kick off 2023. So we're just going to take 3 conscious breaths. One of the misperceptions is you need this quiet space, like Blake said, like you go off and you do silent retreats or things like this. But the way you can just bring this into your everyday life is just maybe schedule 3 conscious breaths as soon as you wake up or before you send an email or when you're transitioning from the car into the office or home. And it just takes 1 conscious breath to presence. So finding your body wherever you are right now, seeing if you can be comfortable. You don't have to change too much or get stiff. Just notice where your body is. Start noticing your breath. You can close your eyes if that's helpful, or you can keep your eyes open. And just notice the natural ebb and flow of your breathing. No need to change it. And then if it feels comfortable to you, bring all of your attention to your breathing and just pay attention as you inhale and exhale. Paying attention to the next inhale and exhale. And do one of those again at your own pace in the inhale and exhale. And then just bring your attention back to wherever you are right now. Opening up your eyes, maybe taking a look around the room. And that took all of less than 15 seconds. And so you can bring that into your day once a day, 10 times a day, and that will start settling the nervous system and regulating the emotions.
Thank you, Renee. Appreciate you. And thank you guys for joining us. Until next time, have a great one.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining me today. Rather than hope the grass will be greener, identify what the right next step is. We can help you do just that. Get clarity on where you are in your journey to career fulfillment, where you're headed, optimal paths to get there, and the right next step to take. Start your complimentary personalized career fulfillment plan at www.thebridgetofulfillment.com/plan. Again, you can get your personalized career fulfillment plan at thebridgetofulfillment.com/plan. Thanks again for joining, and have a great week ahead.